Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hello, 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 Fearless Freedom Tribe. Dr. G, welcome back. Today, I wanted to just do a quick PSA, and I wanted to promote #MedVote. It is a collaborative where physicians are basically encouraging you to vote. Why? Because it's so important for us to do so. As citizens of the U.S., we have the right to vote. For many, that right has come at a great sacrifice by those who preceded us. And so this is an opportunity to exercise your right. So please vote. Every vote does count, and you can make a difference. Several of us as physician podcasters are spreading the word about getting out and voting in these weeks. So #MedVote. Please go and vote. Great news, absolutely fantastic news. Thanks to you and all of your amazing effort in subscribing to the podcast, listening to the podcast, sharing with a friend, and leaving a 5-star rating. Guess what? We are, and I'm doing my happy dance, we are well beyond the 15,000 download milestone. So thank you. Could not have happened without your assistance. So awesome. I'm still contemplating figuring out what we can do as far as what kind of swag we need to have in the swag shop. And I'm looking to you to give me some choices. I don't want to put something in the swag shop that you don't want. So we need to come up with something together. So send me your feedback. You can drop it on Instagram page, wherever you are, LinkedIn. But it would be fantastic if we could have some amazing swag that you have had a say in its development, and it would mean that much more for you. The podcasts from the Podcasting Launch course are still killing it, okay? So from the first round of the course, we have 3 shows that are currently out. Please check out these 3 shows. They're currently crushing it, like I said, and show them some love by subscribing, leaving a 5-star rating, sharing, and leaving a positive comment. The first one is Pivot and Bloom. And Pivot and Bloom is with Dr. Myla, and she brings it every single week with such amazing topics that will help you to change, flourish, and repeat. Then we have the Drama-Free Workplace with Patti Perez. Patti brings her sauce, she brings her secret sauce to the table and helps us to be able to have those crucial conversations and be able to have a drama-free workplace. So check out Drama-Free Workplace. Then we have Living at Your Finest. That is a show that you should definitely check out as well. Dr. Babs does a phenomenal job in combining talking to the heart, talking to the head, and talking about essentially your spirituality and how it affects your wellness. So definitely check her show out as well. If you are interested in being part of the next class, the next Podcasting Launch course, be diligent. Hurry up and fill out the wait list. Get on the wait list because it is filling up fast. I'm actually really encouraged by how quickly the wait list has been filling. As we keep doing this, I think more and more people are learning about it and jumping on board. So you can access the waiting list at bit.ly/P as in Paul, L as in Larry, C as in car, waitlist. So get out there and get on that if that's something that is of interest to you. So maybe you're too busy to participate in the course, but you still want to get your show started. No problem. We have the podcast in a box, and that is especially for you. So all you do there is you provide the audio for the first 5 episodes to launch with a bang, and my team and I, we do the rest. We do the absolute rest, all the heavy lifting that is required in order to get your show up and running in spectacular fashion. If you are looking to do this, then the place to go would be to www.ferventlyfitwithcharmaine.com. So FerventlyFitwithCharmaine.com/D as in dog, F as in fish, Y as in yes, --podcast-marketing. So get off the fair fence today, and your tribe is waiting patiently for your voice. So get your voice out there. Hopefully I don't sound too groggy, like raspy today. This is, with full disclosure, this is being recorded actually the day of release, which is kind of unusual, but not really. So we're way behind on the actual release time. We normally get it out on Sundays at noon, but I worked last night. I've worked the last several nights, and so it's life, real life. There you have it. So on today's show, I had the pleasure of having a conversation with Dr. Sharon Grossman, and we did so live. So she's been like my 5th victim perhaps, of the live podcast. So if you want to see all the antics, the facial expressions, all that stuff, definitely go to the YouTube channel, Charmaine Gregory MD, and you will be able to see that, or you can check it out on Facebook. So with no ado, here we go. No further ado, right? Isn't that how they say it? No further ado. Let's listen to our conversation, which is quite important as we talk about burnout and how you can thrive. Hello, 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 Fearless Freedom Tribe. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another live podcast episode. And my guest today is Dr. Sharon Grossman. So Sharon, you have got to tell the Fearless Freedom Tribe who you are and all of the awesome things that you are up to.
All right. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. So I am a psychologist and coach, and what I focus in on is helping people who are burned out, stressed out, anxious, overwhelmed to really recover. And the main thing that I help them focus in on is the power of the mind and really taking their perceptions and their interpretations and helping them find new ways of understanding what's going on around them. And, lo and behold, it sounds so simple, but it really does change the way that we end up feeling. And I think the biggest misconception out there is that we are stressed or we're anxious because of all the things that are going on outside of us over which we have no control, but it really turns out that that's not the case. So I teach people that it's really about how you interpret those things, how you perceive those things, and then I teach them how they can think about them differently, which I think is actually really empowering, and then they can feel completely different. So that's kind of just the tip of the iceberg, but I've found that it's been really, really helpful in helping people, not just with anxiety, but even burnout, which we often associate with, our job and the demands of the job and our boss and all these things. And there is obviously some validity to that, but also I think there's so much more that we can control that we don't realize. So I think that's just been super cool to be able to work with people. I've been working a lot with physicians, especially women in medicine. So I actually hooked up with you, Charmaine, because you talked about your burnout survivor and your story about that. So it's really nice to be here and be able to kind of talk about that with you.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's a huge problem. It's huge. It is I want to call it a creeper, because it basically, a lot of times you don't even realize that you have it.
That's right.
You may know you have anxiety, for example, because you know of the physical manifestations, you know, like you're jittery, or you get sweaty palms, or you're feeling uneasy. But burnout's a slippery little snake, because it doesn't really come in front of you and just say, you know, it doesn't really come in your face and say, hey, you're burned out. It's more like a little tap that's really faint, and you just don't feel it until you're crashing and burning. And then you're like, wait a minute, how did I get here? So no, I thank you for your work, because it's so important to have that focus and to have a way forward, and to have professionals like yourself who are, you know, focusing in on this and helping us to get through this. Because, you know, I don't know, when I was going through it, I didn't have the assistance of somebody like you, and you know, it would have been great to have that. So yeah, no, I'm glad that you're able to come on and just share with the audience, because I feel like there's so many people who are perhaps even listening right now who may have some of the early signs of burnout, don't even really realize it, or maybe they're in the thick of it and they have no idea what the way forward is. And this is a great opportunity to speak to somebody who does this professionally and does offer some ways forward. So I thank you for coming on the show, right? Because I mean, I feel like it's something that's well needed. It's something that, you know, we need to keep talking about, because it's an issue. It's a huge issue.
Yeah, I think you really hit the two main problems on the head. The first is that people don't even know that they have it until it's too late, right? So I teach that burnout's really on a spectrum. And so it's something that happens over time. And so it's so important to know what to look out for. Otherwise, you just think you're stressed, or you just think you're tired, and you don't really understand that this is you kind of going down the line of burnout. And it's like only when you've reached the very, very end, when you're like, oh, I'm completely drained, I have nothing more to give, there's no way for me to keep doing this work other than like I need my exit strategy, which is really a pity, because, you know, especially physicians, just look how many years, how much effort, how much energy you pour into the career, and then to be able to just walk away like that is heartbreaking, you know?
It is. Yeah,
and,
no, you're right.
And so I want to be able to give people hope, especially if they love doing the work, but they just don't feel like it's sustainable, to find new ways to stay in their career so that they can keep doing the thing that they love without it being so draining and so taxing on them, you know?
Yeah, no, that's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is like not even realizing that it's happening to you. And like the second thing you said is that once you do realize it, then you're like, well, now what do I do about it?
Right. Right.
A really important question to be able to answer, right?
Oh yeah, indeed. The you know, like with every situation, I don't want to really compare it to addiction, but that's like the closest thing I can compare it to, because the reason why I compare it to that is not because it's something that it takes. Well, no, yes, this is the reason why. It's because number one, it takes over your life. Number one, it can destroy your life, right? Yeah. It can destroy your relationships. It can destroy your career. I mean, usually the career is the last thing that is affected by it, because your relationships usually go first. So you typically, sever personal relationships because your behavior is manifested in a negative way. You don't realize the reasoning behind it. And so you have no way of, heading it off at the pass, and then, not letting your relationships go to pot. And so that's the first thing that goes. And then you may start turning to things that are addictive. Like you may turn to substances, you may turn to alcohol, you may turn to, illicit drugs. You may turn to prescription drugs, so these are all the things. So this is the way I compare it to addiction. And the other reason why I compare it to addiction is because with addiction, just like addiction, it is one of those things where you have to recognize that you have it going on. Like, you have to say, I am an alcoholic. You have to say, I am a burnout. Well, now I can say I'm a burnout thriver, but you have to say, I am going through burnout. Like you have to acknowledge the thing. And so that's the first step. And then once you've made that acknowledgement, then you have to then seek a way out. So finding someone like you to help, or, whatever it is, however it is that you feel your way out is, because everybody's journey into burnout is different. Like my story is completely different from, another colleague's story. It's going to be completely different, but we're all ending up with the same feeling, the same common feeling, just the stressors and depressors and all of the things that led us here are going to be different. They're going to be very individualized. So, definitely when you are in the mix, you've made the acknowledgement, and then now you're seeking help, you want to make sure that you are willing to be open about what it is, or why it is, or how it is that you arrived at this place. And then once you have done the deep work and arrive on the other side of things, it's like every single day is a decision. Just like an alcoholic who has recovered, every day is a decision. Am I going to drink today, or am I not going to drink today? Like literally, like I have to mentally go through that exercise and say to myself, where do I stand on the meter today? Am I in the burnout side, or am I on the resilience side? Like, where am I? And if I find that I am more on the burnout side, I have to take action and do things that are deliberate in order to get me to the resilience side. And so it's a stepping stone. It's a stages thing, and it is a everyday daily decision thing. And so that's why I compare it to addiction. And people say, wow, that's kind of drastic, but that's the only thing that I can think of where you have to acknowledge that you're having a problem. You go through the steps to fix the problem. And then every day you make a decision about whether or not you're going to go down one path or another related to the problem. So that's burnout.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned like we have to be aware that it's a problem in order to acknowledge it. And then once we are aware of it, then we have to seek out the help, or we have to figure out some sort of solution. And since, we're here to really talk about fear, one of the things that I've noticed, especially in the medical field, is because there's so much stigma around mental health, a lot of people don't want to admit that there's something wrong. And I've actually spoken to a lot of physicians who will go outside of their arena to get help because they don't want anybody to know. So, because actually what I've understood so far is that a lot of times the system will stigmatize the doctor as, they're not able to handle things, or like, it's not built to support physicians, unfortunately. So what it does is it kind of wears you down. It puts all this pressure on you. And if you don't know how to kind of manage that, and that nobody really teaches you how to do that in med school, right? They don't tell you like how to think differently, how to control your emotions. A lot of this is really emotional intelligence, right?
Right.
So unless you are really trained in how to do that, then you're starting to notice all the impact that it has on you. And then it's like this double-edged sword that you can't even come in and say like, listen, I'm burning out, right? So it's really unfair, and it's really unfortunate. It's not a built-in kind of part of the system to help support the physician, but and it's not just physicians, right? It's like loads of professionals in all kinds of careers, right? Lawyers experience tons of burnout.
Oh yes.
There's all kinds of really high pressure situations where people are burning out. And I also just want to say that I think a lot of it has to do also with the individual, because what I've seen is that the kind of people who tend to burn out more so, and this isn't like researched or anything, but this is just from like my experience, is people who tend to push themselves really hard. Right. So we have people who are really high achievers, who believe in really hard work and improving themselves and needing acknowledgement and validation for their accomplishments, and they kind of thrive off of that. And so they're constantly pushing. And as soon as they start to feel like their energy levels going down because they're burning out, they push even harder. Right. They're like, I got to just put my head down and
right. Work my way out of it.
That contributes to more of the problem, right? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand that, and so they're finding that it becomes harder and harder over time, which is unfortunate because they're trying so hard and they want it so badly, but they're not getting the support. They don't have the resources, and they haven't necessarily been trained in how to manage their own mind. So it's just kind of a recipe for disaster, unfortunately, for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, that is so what happens. Speaking from the other side, it's just, yeah, no, totally. Because, you know, you're correct. Like I mean, I could speak for medicine. I can't speak for law or any engineering or any of the other professionals, both professionals. But, you know, like in medical school, yeah, no, there isn't a lot of, you know, that type of thinking. There isn't a lot of focus on wellness and your psyche and how all of this is going to affect you ultimately. Why? Because yeah, I mean, I get why. I mean, there's just so much information that you have to digest, assimilate and basically, you know, regurgitate, that there just isn't an opportunity for that. Right. And so I get it. But at the same time, it's like, it's kind of the onus is on us to really be cognizant of where we are and how we're doing from the psychological side, you know, and, you know, really paying attention to that, because that's a huge part of wellness, a huge part of self-care. And it's the thing that's going to help us to have longevity, because there's really no reason why so many people coming out of medical school and residency should be saying they're ready to quit. I mean, I talked to 2 brand new attendings recently, and they're like, you know what? I can't wait to retire. And they just got done training, you know, and it's sad because it's like
sad. And I think it really points to how poorly constructed the system is, that it doesn't, I mean, you say like, you know, the onus is on us, and that's true, but it's only because the system doesn't allow for that. And it actually does the opposite. It says like, don't sleep for, you know, 36 hours. When we know there's so much research out there on sleep and the importance of it. And like, if you want to be able to have good performance and be able to kind of last long term and not get into like depression and all that, that you really need to get at least 8 hours of sleep every night, right? And if you're getting 3 hours of sleep, or you're not sleeping for extended lengths of time in it, and I don't think it's just in med school. I mean, you've got, you know, emergency care physicians, you've got all kinds of people who are on call. That's just the nature of the profession, right? And it's easy to just say, you know, you guys figure it out, you deal with it. Like we just want you to do what we want you to do, right? We just need you to come in and show up and do all the work. And then if you're going to fall apart, do it on your own time. You know, so it is constructed in that way, unfortunately, but then it is on the physician to figure out, how can I make this work for me? Right? That's such a powerful question. And I think sometimes we're kind of not able to see any sort of solution because we're so fried, right? We can't even think straight. We're so just like overly emotional, and we're tired. And we can't figure out like how to make it work. But I know that there, you know, from experience of speaking to a lot of people in the field, I know that a lot of people have been able to, just like you, find alternative ways of using their medical degree. And it could be like just, you know, there's something called job crafting, where we just either take what we have and we kind of mold it to fit more of our needs, or we kind of make little pivots inside, or we can completely restructure it. We become entrepreneurs, or we find other things that we can do. And I think that's important to figure out, like, where do you fit in and how you make it work for you. But I mean, like I say, people spend so much time going through this process to become a physician that it would be a real pity to then give up as soon as you walk in the door as a physician and say, like, okay, I just finished my training and I spent all these years doing it, and I got all the student loans, right? And now it's like, I'm ready to quit. Right. What kind of a system are we building here?
Yeah. You know? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a question that I actually was a little shocked talking to these 2 young doctors, because I mean, I'm not a young doctor anymore, because I'm like 45, so I'm not really young anymore. And I've been doing this for like 15 years. But you know, it's like I didn't go through my stumbling point until what we'd say, I guess, mid-career. So I was like 8 years in or something like that. And so, you know, it was surprising to have that conversation where, you know, someone that was just finishing is saying, man, I don't know what I can do here. And, you know, so my advice to them really was, you know, you just need to go back and find the things that brought you joy, right? And you need to think about how can you incorporate those things either in your practice, how can you change your practice so that you can incorporate those things, or you need to have that joy expanded externally so that it can enhance your practice. Because if you're doing things that make you happy, then you're more likely to enjoy what you do when you go and you see patients. Like it just is just like it's like a, I don't want to say like a biofeedback loop, but it's basically like, the two feet on each other, right? So
There's
the
a
more
spillover effect.
yeah, there is. And what happens to us, many of us, is this. We were an amazing person when we were in college. We did all the things. We were like in all the clubs. We had all these hobbies, right? And then, we killed it, got grades, whatever, got into medical school. And then in medical school, like all the extra stuff kind of got narrowed, got honed down to really be
space for it anymore.
Right. There isn't time. And then residency, it's a similar situation, more coning down. And so then ultimately what ends up happening is you lose part of yourself. You come out and you're not the same person you were when you entered. And so, of course, if you're not finding fulfillment entirely from the craft, you're going to feel horrible. Like you just will. And so I always tell people, I'm like, even the residents that come through, the med students that come through, I'm like, look, you need to hold on to at least one hobby. Just hold on to it. Even if you like, just do the thing like once a quarter or something, hold on to that thing because you want to have something that's going to remind you of who you were before you started this journey. Because it's huge. It's huge, And so, that was my advice to the two individuals. I was like, well, you maybe need to revisit some hobbies and figure out how you can incorporate that into your life right now so that you can have joy as you're going through, because otherwise you'll be crusty. You'll be like, oh, crunchy crusty. And like,
yeah, it's really important to figure out how to balance all the things in life. And often people have this misconception about what balance actually means. And they think it's impossible because it means like 50-50, and my work takes more than 50%. So it's just not possible. And, and I think it's really important to understand that that's not what it has to mean. What it has to mean is that you're able to incorporate all the important things into your life. So you have to find time, obviously, for your work, and we prioritize that, but time for your self-care, time for your family, time for your friends, time for your hobbies. Like there's all these things that if you don't have them as part of the recipe, right, as part of like all the ingredients, then the recipe just doesn't come out as good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that is the balance thing is always it's always something that we're fighting with, because like you said, we always think it's 50-50, but sometimes it might be 70-30, other times it might be 80-20. And then it kind of goes back and forth. It's just what's going to help you to be the best person that you can be and not crash and burn,
Absolutely. And I think like we may not have as much control when we're in medical school or residency about, the hours and all the demands. But I think once we're in our career, we have a lot more control. And I think you have to find the thing that really fits the kind of lifestyle that you want to lead. And look, I think sometimes what gets in the way is when people just are set on having a specific career, and that's okay. Like if you want to prioritize that, you can do that. And obviously that means that you're willing to pay a certain price. But also know that is a choice and that there are other versions of that out there where if you want to prioritize other parts of your life, you can incorporate them as well, right? And I've spoken to a lot of physicians who have other kind of side gigs, or they just want to tap into something creative or something fun, or they like to just spend a lot of time with their family or go traveling or whatever it is for you, that you can have that. You just have to prioritize it and plan it in advance.
Yes. Awesome. So you have a book out now. Is the book geared toward burnout?
Yes, it's actually called the 7E Solution to Burnout. Okay. Transforming high achievers from exhausted to extraordinary. And basically what I do is I take people on a journey where each of these 7 steps, which I call like the complete solution to burnout, right, is starts with the letter E, so hence the name. But we start, as we talked about a little bit earlier today, we start with emotional intelligence because it's so important for you to know yourself. And if you have a need that's not being met, you have to be able to understand why you're burning out, right? There's usually something that you're not paying attention to. So it's really about self-awareness. And then self-management is the other piece of emotional intelligence, where we're able to manage our own thoughts. And as a result of that, get in control of our emotions. So if you're feeling highly anxious, if you're feeling overwhelmed, whatever it is that the negative emotion is coming up for you, self-management is the tool that's going to help you to get in control of that and feel more calm and more grounded. And that's like super important. From that place of knowing exactly what your need is, then the next step in the book is really about empowerment, right? And so we want to be able to feel like we do have control, and we want to actually take inventory. So it's kind of like, we talk a lot about people in their homes and how we've got all this stuff in our house. Yes. And having a lot of clutter in your space can be really deflating in terms of energy, right? It can be really de-energizing. And I think the same goes for a lot of different things in our life, whether it's our negative thinking. There are people who are very self-critical, have a lot of negative self-talk, whether it's people around you that are very critical, whether it's, again, the clutter or whatever it is. There's things that I think are draining of your energy. So empowerment, I look at it as also like identifying what are those energy drains and eliminating them and replacing them with things that are, more in your favor. And then, I take people into engagement. And there's a lot of research on engagement and work and how important that is, because, one of the things we see with burnout is it can be on two ends of a spectrum, right? You have people who are overly engaged. So these are kind of like the people who are, as we said before, when it's really, really tough, there's a lot of pressure on them, they throw themselves in there even more, right? And so they might be overly engaged, or you've got people who are really like workaholics and they spend all their time working. And so there's not enough time to recover. And that's a recipe for burnout, right? There, again, it lacks that balance. On the other end of the spectrum, we see people who are disengaged. And that could be because they're not challenged enough, they're bored, they just can't really get in there. Or it could be that they're already burned out, that they just don't have the energy. So then they try not to, they kind of sit in the background and try not to get too involved in the work, right? Either way, we're trying to get people into what we call optimal engagement. So it's a level where you're engaged with your work in the best way possible. So it's kind of like if you've ever been in a state of flow, and how like you really get in there and time just flies by, and it just seems so much easier and so much more pleasurable. That's the idea there. And then ultimately, we want people to feel a sense of self-efficacy. And efficacy is really your belief in your ability to do the work. One of the things we know that happens in burnout is we start to lose our confidence when our energy is low, and we start to notice that, hey, I used to be able to do this thing and now I can't. So
Right.
there must be something wrong with me, right? And then when you lose your ability to believe in yourself, or it's not really the ability to do the work, but it's your belief in that ability. We know that our thoughts affect our performance. And so in the same way, when you're not really feeling confident, it's going to affect your work. And so helping people to reestablish strong self-efficacy, I think is really key. And then we talk about energy, because that's something that's so important, especially when we're exhausted. So this, again, comes back to how to incorporate self-care. And I really primarily started off with obstacles to self-care, which are a lot of the self-talk, a lot of the ideas that we have in our mind, like, I don't have time for self-care.
Right.
So first we have to just get over that before we can even implement, because people know what they need to do.
Oh yeah.
They're just not doing it because they have all these mindset obstacles. So we really kind of tackle that. And then we say, okay, now that we're over that, now let's actually delve into the things that are going to help you, like sleep and, eating well and, all the things. So there's too many to mention, but so important in order to be able to keep that long-term vision of staying in the work and be able to thrive in it, right? Be able to establish those good habits. And then there's effort. So a lot of times I've talked to clients who are feeling really stressed or feeling kind of bogged down, and they just kind of lose their motivation. They kind of just are like, oh, I don't want to do this because it's going to take too much effort. Or even in this, it's like not even that it is that much effort, but in their mind, it feels like so much effort. And if you're already tired, then you're just like, I don't have the energy, you know? I wish I spoke to somebody who told me, you know, she's kind of feeling a little down because it's COVID and she's been working from home. And she's like, I know I need to get outside. I don't get a lot of sunshine in my apartment. And she said, but it's like 20 minutes and so much effort for me to get outside because I got to put my shoes on.
Oh, I see. I'm like, 20 minutes to go outside?
Yeah, like it felt so heavy just to like put shoes on and open the door.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So sometimes in our mind, it's like we're so like bombarded by our thoughts and how heavy and how difficult things can be. But then when we actually do that, we realize not only was it not that difficult, I feel so much better that I've done that, right?
Yes,
and we often know people who say that about going to the gym. Oh, I'm going to have to pack a bag. I'm going to have to drive over there and find parking and all this stuff. But then you're like, oh, I'm so glad I went. It was awesome, right? I feel so much more energized now. So I think sometimes we just have to kind of trick our brain and kind of fast forward and get to the other side and be like, how am I going to feel when I do this thing, right? After the fact, because it's hard. The hardest thing is just getting started.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Right. And so it's really about balancing effort and rewards and kind of getting our motivation back. And then ultimately, the last E of the book is what I call enlightenment. And the way that I refer to it here is kind of just lightening your load and really focusing in on your mindset, using and really developing mindfulness. So using tools like meditation and some other things to help just retrain your brain to think differently and to lower your response, your reaction time and so forth. So it's really like this journey that I'm having the reader go on. And there's a workbook. So it's really asking them to take time with this book and read a section and answer the questions and the exercises so that it's not just about reading it cover to cover. It's really about the transformation. It's really about applying the information that you're reading about to yourself and really thinking about it before. So it's kind of like self-coaching, if you will.
It's active learning. I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. And so, so for those, if you're listening to the audio, you can't see this, but on the screen, we have the website up, and it's 7E as in Ernie, SOLUTION.com, 7esolution.com. And so can people get your book elsewhere, or do they have to go through the website?
No, so the website just has information on the book, and it also explains. I also have this like bonus program for people who want to purchase the book and maybe gift it to their colleagues. I want to really incentivize, the building of the community. And so one of the things that it explains there is all the bonuses that they can get for doing that sort of thing. So people who want to have like a free coaching with me, they can sign up for that and just submit their receipts of their purchases, and they can get access to that. But the book is actually available on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon and you look up the 7E Solution to Burnout, you'll find it.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. And then if somebody wants to get in contact with you, is drsharongrossman.com the best place?
It is the best place. And on there, there's just a little bit of information about me, but ultimately there's a place for people who want to chat about their situation. I do offer a breakthrough session. It's free. It's 30 minutes. And so there's a way that they can schedule time with me through that website.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And so we have been chatting for 30 minutes.
Oh
Can
my
you believe that?
Flew
Can you believe
by.
that? It's a good conversation. So we are at that point of the show where we do our tradition, and that is a fill in the blanks. Dr. Grossman, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Oh my goodness. All right. So the first one is, if I am fearless, I will.
I will be unstoppable.
Love it. Love it. The next one is, to me, fearless freedom means
Having the ability to do anything you want.
sweet. And then last but not least, my battle cry is
You are stronger than you think you are.
thank you, thank you, thank you so much for spending time with the Fearless Freedom Tribe. We appreciate you. We appreciate the work that you do, because there are those among us who are needing that kind of service. Let me tell you, and it's real. It's real. So appreciate you for sure. And everybody, be sure to hit up Dr. Grossman at drsharongrossman.com. Learn about her programs. Definitely check out the book, 7E Solution for Burnout. Make it happen. And
Awesome.
yeah, so thanks again for being
Thank
part of
you
our
for
show.
having me. And I really appreciate it. And I hope it was helpful for people to be able to kind of hear about this and give them some hope if they are in a situation where they're feeling really anxious or overwhelmed or burned out. Just know that it doesn't have to stay that way.
Awesome. No, that's right. That is absolutely right. All right. So be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness, y'all.